Welcome in. You already know what time it is. Alex Kleininger in the building. Let's dive into the Nexus. Let's dive into the Nexus. Step into the zone. Carolina stories got a life of their home. From the pages to the labs, yeah, we break it all down. If you love those books, you're at the right sound. Let's dive into the Nexus. Yeah, the mics stay reckless. Hometown justice, legends in the message. Casey Elkins on the trail, solving cases non-stop. Turn it up loud, yeah, the Nexus don't stop. We talk plot twists, characters, theories. Author Q&A, getting answers you've been hearing. Special guests slide through, pull up a seat. Chaotic conversations with the Carolina heat. From small town drama to the mysteries deep. Every chapter got secrets we're ready to keep. Laughs laid back with the energy wild. If you read Kleininger, you already family now. Let's dive into the Nexus, step into the zone. Carolina stories got a life of their own. From the pages to the labs, yeah, we break it all down. If you love those books, you're at the right sound. Let's dive into the Nexus, come and connect us. Alex Kleininger live, yeah, you rocking with the Nexus. Hit play, stay tuned. Every episode fresh. Welcome to the Carolina Nexus. Brought to you straight from Carolina soil. Press play and let's dive in.
Welcome to the Carolina Nexus, ladies and gentlemen. First shout out to my son Tyson. I know you're watching, buddy. How you doing? I love you. I'm gonna do a quick couple announcements before we get started. Sorry about the blurriness. It's still not my professional setup. The Carolina Nexus is hosting the Hometown Justice Hostile book cover contest. There are several entries already in. The contest ends. Hang on, I got something for it if I can find it. The contest ends May 31st. You send your entries at the Carolina Nexus podcast at gmail.com. Send your entries there. It'll be judged beginning June 4th. And then after June 4th, the very first Monday after June 4th, I'll start letting the fans vote on who they think is the best one. Now remember, this is for a unedited signed copy of Hometown Justice Hostile that still says not for resale on the front of it. A signed copy of the edited final product, physical book of Hometown Justice Hostile with your cover on it, and a certificate of authenticity signed by me. I've extended the timeline, but I can't do it any longer than May 31st. So May 31st will no longer be accepted. June 4th, judging will start. And then the Monday after June 4th, you, the Carolina Nexus podcast fans, will be deciding which one becomes the next cover of Hometown Justice Hostile. Second announcement I need to make. Hometown Justice Hostile Unedited and Casey Elkins The Mist Unedited are available now on Kindle. Kindle Unlimited if you have it. If you don't have Kindle Unlimited, they're only like $5. So check them out if you're a big fan of my series. Hometown Justice Hostile is book 4 in the series, book 1 in trilogy number 2. I know it's a lot of numbers I just threw at you. The Mist, a Casey Elkins investigation, is book 3 in the Casey Elkins series, but it's finally leading up to the big crossover event. There's a lot of things happening in The Mist that you, the readers, need to catch up on before the 4th Casey Elkins book takes place. And tonight, we're reading chapter 3 and 4 of Tygapagon, Enter the Tiger. I think that is been my highest viewed episode since I started doing this. So we're going to pop into this in just a moment. If you haven't already got your tickets for TCW Presents Destiny, go check it out. Check out their webpage. Check out their Facebook page. I'm still using the free version of Restream, so I can't bring the image on the screen to show you guys. I'm sorry I had to cut back in the budget. But go check out TCW's Facebook page. Um, that's where my boy Dump Truck and Jesse will be getting married. It's not fate, it's destiny. Go check them out. Foothills Championship Wrestling still has not sent me information about their first card. I cannot wait. I look forward to advertising for them. Um, that is all. I'm waiting for a few more people to come on this live and let me know they're here. Scott Larson's in the house, ladies and gentlemen. He says chapter 3 and 4. Awesome. Scott, I don't know if you caught last week's episode or not, but I read two chapters because chapter 1 just didn't fill a whole lot of time. So I figure for the shorter chapters, I'll read 2 chapters and I'll make an announcement when it's going to be just 1 chapter read before the episode starts. We're going to get into a recap as soon as I get a few more people online and get this thing underway. Thank you all for tuning in. Scott, he's my producer. He's the one that gave me the idea of doing this. And I listen to Scott. He gives me advice. He's the greatest dude in the world. If you guys don't know Scott Larson, take time to get to know him. I promise you, you won't be disappointed. So yeah, Scott's doing his thing. I don't know if Scott. I know Scott did the remake of Hometown Justice Homecomings book cover. It was an amazing book cover. Also, one of my highest viewed episodes of the Carolina Nexus before I switched it up was showcasing his podcast, his book cover. I'm hoping to see Scott have an entry in this new one. Amber and Tyson are watching. I already said hello to Tyson when I first came on the screen. Ty, Daddy loves you. For those of you that don't know, Tyson is my youngest son. He's only 6 months old. He's named after Tyson from the books and Oliver Queen, Tommy Oliver, Tyson Oliver. He's become one of the biggest fans of Carolina Nexus. He just loves doing this. Scott, ain't nobody lying to nobody. I tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. You are one amazing dude. I don't care what anybody else says about you. I will say that till I'm blue in the face or I fight a Smurf, whichever one happens first. Just waiting for a few more people to come online. I tagged a bunch of people in. If you guys want to share it. Tag 5 friends in the comments. Get them all in here. Let's get this thing rolling. Because we're going to have a Q&A session right after this about the chapters we just read. And I apologize if you hear the dog barking in the background. I didn't bring my earbuds, so she's going to be loud. Okay. Yes, until I have to fight a Smurf, Amber. Sit over there and be quiet. Find my mistakes in my book and let me know about them. All right, guys. I think I'm gonna dive into this recap real quick. As soon as my computer stops messing up, let's go here. Now, sorry about the echo. So last week on this episode on the Monday night episode, we read chapter 1 and chapter 2 of Tagapagon Enter the Tiger, and this is what you missed. Quick recap of both chapters. Chapter 1 introduced you to the sheriff's son. 13-year-old Alex Ruler is just trying to get through a typical morning at Pokeville Middle School when he's cornered by bullies Douglas Kennedy and David Brown. Right as things are about to get physical, a new kid named Ken Manson steps in and shuts it down with nothing but nerve and sharp words. Ken and Alex bond over Magic the Gathering cards, and a friendship is born. Back at home, at dinner, Alex keeps the whole incident to himself. He can't bring himself to admit he was bullied when his father, Sheriff Alhan Ruler, is the symbol of strength and authority in their small town. But staring out his bedroom window at the Boa Fang Karate Dojo across the street, it's not across the street actually, it's across town, Alex starts wondering if martial arts might be the answer he's looking for. And then in Chapter 2, he works up the courage to go into Boa Fang on Saturday morning and gets turned away by the cold head instructor Usanagi, who tells him flat out he isn't ready. To make it worse, Douglas is there as a student to rub it in. Frustrated and humiliated, Alex punches a brick wall on the way out and messes up his knuckles on his he gets home and tries to hide it, but his dad notices because of course the sheriff notices. And the two of them have a rare honest moment where Alhan shares his own police academy instructor once told him he didn't belong and reminds Alex that facing fear is what a ruler does. He offers to set up a punching bag in the garage and drops a hint that Boa Fang might not be the only path. Alex walks away with his fist still stinging, but with something new taking root: quiet determination. And now, guys, we're going to jump into Chapter 3 and Chapter 4 of the Taigapagon, Enter the Tiger. Sunday evening was peaceful on the Ruler farm, the sun setting behind the hills and casting a warm golden glow over the fields. After yesterday's humiliation at the dojo, Alex had spent most of the day hiding in his room, but even he couldn't avoid the traditional dinner with the Jurgens. The dining room was alive with the sounds of laughter and conversations. Both families shared a hearty meal prepared by Eunice Ruler. The aroma of roasted chicken, sweet potatoes, and cornbread filled the air, a testament to Eunice's renowned cooking skills. Allison's father, Rick Jurgens, leaned back in his chair, his weathered farmer's hands rough against the polished wood. Eunice, I swear you've outdone yourself again. You could feed an army with this spread. Eunice smiled graciously, her eyes catching the bandage on Alex's knuckles before quickly looking away. Oh, Rick, you know I love cooking for everyone. Besides, it's not every day we get the whole crew together. At the opposite end of the table, Allison and her sister Tiffany were deep in conversation with Alex. Allison's honey blonde hair caught the evening light, her green eyes bright with interest as Mr. Ruler talked about the new ponies he'd recently acquired. She wore her usual riding boots even at dinner, always ready for a chance to visit the stables. I can't wait to meet 'em, Allison says, her excitement unmistakable. I've always loved horses. Alex, seated beside her, tried to suppress the nervous energy bubbling inside him. He nodded along, stealing glances at her when she wasn't looking, grateful that everyone seemed too distracted by dinner to ask about his injured hand. Tiffany, sharp-eyed and mischievous with the same blonde hair as her sister, but cut in a shorter style, caught on quickly. As dessert was served, a warm apple pie with a generous scoop of vanilla ice cream, Tiffany leaned forward towards Alex. You know, she whispered with a teasing grin, you're not as subtle as you think you are. Alex nearly choked on his pie. What are you talking about? He mumbled, glancing around to make sure no one else was paying attention. Oh, come on, Tiffany said, rolling her eyes. It's obvious you have a crush on Allison. Why don't you just tell her? Alex's face burned. I don't, he started, but Tiffany cut him off. Save it. You're going to tell her eventually, so why not now? I mean, what's the worst that could happen? Before Alex could muster a response, Allison appeared at his side, a bright smile on her face. What are you two whispering about? She asked playfully. Nothing important, Tiffany said quickly, a sly grin still lingering. She stood and stretched. I think I'll go help Mom and Mrs. Ruler with the dishes. Allison tilted her head, curious but not pressing further. Hey, Alex, she said, turning her attention to him. Want to walk around the farm with me? I really want to see those ponies your dad was talking about. Sure, Alex replied, his heart thudding in his chest. He stood quickly, eager yet nervous about the time of being alone with her. The two walked side by side through the open field, the cool evening air brushing against their faces. Allison chatted happily about the choir and school, her voice light and musical. Alex listened intently, trying to work up the courage to say something meaningful. As they approached the paddock, Allison leaned on the fence, peering out at the grazing ponies. They're beautiful, she said softly. I can see why you love living out here. Alex opened his mouth to reply when a sudden commotion shattered the tranquility. The ponies, startled by something unseen, began to neigh loudly and stomp their hooves in an instant. The peaceful scene turned chaotic as the animals bolted, the sheer force of their panic snapping the fencing. Allison, watch out! Alex shouted, grabbing her arm and pulling her back just as the stampede surged forward. The ground trembled beneath them as the herd charged past, their hooves kicking up dust and grass. Alex shielded Allison, pressing her close to him as they ducked behind a nearby tree. His heart pounded, the adrenaline coursing through him as he tried to assess the situation. What just happened? Allison asked, her voice trembling. I don't know, Alex said, glancing toward the paddock. Something must have spooked them. They both looked toward the broken fence. The ponies were running wild across the field, their movements frantic and unpredictable. Alex knew they had to act quickly before the animals got too far or injured themselves. Stay here, he told Allison firmly. I'll go get my dad. He'll know what to do. No way, Allison said, shaking her head. I'm not letting you handle this alone. Alex hesitated, torn between wanting to keep her safe and knowing he needed help. Just then, a piercing whine cut through the air, drawing their attention to a small foal struggling to free itself from the tangled remains of the fence. We need to help it, Allison said urgently. Okay, Alex agreed, determination settled over him. But stay close to me. As they approached the trapped foal, Alex's bandaged hand throbbed, reminding him of yesterday's failure, but this was different. This time someone needed his help, and he wasn't going to let fear stop him. It's okay, Alex said softly, inching closer. We're here to help. Allison knelt beside him, her hand steady as she worked to untangle the foal's legs. It's okay, little one, she murmured, her voice soothing. You're going to be all right. With a final tug, the foal was free. It scrambled to its feet, shaking itself before trotting off toward the herd. Allison smiled, a sense of relief washing over her. Nice work, Alex said, glancing at her with admiration. You too, she replied, her cheeks flushed but her eyes bright. The two stood there for a moment, catching their breath as the last rays of sunlight dipped below the horizon. Though the chaos had subsided, Alex felt a newfound sense of confidence. For the first time, he'd taken charge in a moment of crisis, and Allison had been there with him. Let's get back to the house, Allison said, her voice gentle. Your dad's going to need to know about the fence. Alex nodded, falling into step beside her as they made their way back toward the farm. The evening air was still cool, but there was a warmth between them that hadn't been there before, a quiet understanding born from the events of the night. That ends Chapter 3. We're going to dive into Chapter 4, get this thing completed, and then we'll do Q&A. Chapter 4. Alex and Allison hurried back to the house, their breaths coming in short gasps as they ran through the field. The night was alive with the distant, frantic neighing of the horses, the sound of their pounding hooves fading in the distance. Allison clung to Alex's arm, her eyes wide, darting nervously toward the direction of the stampede. When they reached the back porch, the warm light spilling from the windows of the Ruler farmhouse provided a stark contrast to the chaos outside. Alex burst through the door, the bandaged knuckles throbbing as he gripped the doorframe. Dad! Mom! He panted. The horses! They broke through the fencing. Something spooked them and they've stampeded. The room fell silent for a moment before Alhan Ruler stood, his face etched with concern. The horses? Broke the fence, he repeated, already moving toward the coat rack to grab his jacket. His eyes flickered briefly to Alex's bandaged hand before focusing on the situation at hand. What happened? Mr. Jerkins asked, standing as well. I don't know, Alex replied, shaking his head. They were fine one minute, and the next they were panicked. I got Allison out of the way just in time. Allison nodded, still clutching Alex's sleeve. They were so scared it was like something was out there, but I didn't see anything. Eunice hurried over to Allison, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. Are you hurt, sweetheart? She asked, her voice gentle but firm. I'm okay, Allison said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Alex made sure of that. Alhan exchanged a look with Mr. Juergens. We'll need to check the fence and round up the horses before they get too far. He turned to Alex. Good job getting Allison out of harm's way, son. Stay here and help your mother if she needs anything. I want to help, Alex protested, straightening up. After humiliation at the dojo yesterday, he needed to prove himself useful. You've done enough for tonight, Alhan said, his tone leaving no room for argument. Stay here. Alhan grabbed for the police radio on his belt. Dispatch, Sheriff Ruler here. I need animal control units dispatched to Ruler Farm Road. Stampeding horses broke through my fencing. I don't have the manpower to corral them. 10-4, Sheriff, dispatching animal control right away. ETA 35 minutes, the voice returned. Cackled. I apologize for the breaking of my voice. Sheriff, a lot can happen to those animals in 35 minutes, Mr. Juergens stated. Dad, you can't let anything happen to those poor horses, Allison piped in. Don't you fret none, little lady, Alhan said, reassuring Allison. Your father and I will do our best to corral what we can until help arrives. Rick, grab the flashlight out of the drawer beside you. Alhan removed his police issue flashlight from his belt. Follow me. As Alhan and Mr. Jurgens grabbed the flashlights and headed out into the night, Eunice guided Alex and Allison to sit down at the table. It's probably just a predator that wandered too close, she said, more to reassure herself than anyone else. Your dad, Mr. Jurgens, will take care of it. I should be out there helping, Alex grumbled, obviously ticked off at being left behind. Tiffany leaned forward, her sharp eyes fixed on Alex. So let me get this straight, she said, her voice laced with teasing. You saved Allison from a stampede? Boy, you're really leaning into this knight in shining armor thing, huh? Alex's entire mood changed as he flushed, but he could not. But before he could respond, Allison shot her sister a look. Tiffany, not now, she said firmly. It was serious. Tiffany raised her hands in mock surrender, though her grin remained. All right, all right. Just saying, it's kind of romantic, don't you think? Tiffany, Allison warned, her cheeks turning pink. Before the conversation could continue, a loud, piercing whinny echoed from outside, cutting through the night and silencing everyone. Eunice's hand tightened on her teacup, and even Tiffany's playful demeanor faded. I hope they're okay, Allison murmured, her voice barely audible. Alex stood again, glancing toward the window, his heart still racing, but now it was a mix of growing sense of unease. Let me rephrase that. His heart was still racing, but now it was mixed with a growing sense of unease. Whatever had spooked the horses was still out there, and he couldn't shake the feeling that it was just the beginning. In the woods just beyond Ruler Farm, Douglas Kennedy and his friends from the Boa Fang dojo huddled together, their white uniforms now dirty from crawling through the underbush. Douglas leaned against a tree, the same smug expression he'd worn earlier that day at the dojo still plastered across his face. Did you see the way they bolted? That'll teach the rulers not to mess with us. Yeah, but Sensei Usanagi would kill us if he knew, one of the boys muttered, nervously brushing dirt from his gi. This isn't what he meant by showing strength. And what about honor? Another student added quietly. Aren't we supposed to be better than this? Douglas's eyes narrowed. Usanagi's not here, is he? Besides, after that pathetic display yesterday morning, someone needed to teach the sheriff's kid a lesson about respect. What's the matter? Worried about getting your precious uniforms dirty? No, but the boys fell silent as voices carried through the trees. Quiet, Douglas hissed, his smirk fading as he motioned for his friends to scatter. The group moved quickly, darting through the underbrush, but one boy, Jarvis Hamrick, wasn't fast enough. He tripped over a root and fell, his breath hitching as the flashlight beam swept closer. Who's there? Alhan called out, his voice sharp. He and Rick approached the spot where Jarvis lay, his face pale with fear. Alhan shone his flashlight directly on the boy, illuminating the mud-stained white uniform. Jarvis Hamrick? He said, recognizing the boy immediately. What are you doing out here? Jarvis stammered, his words tumbling over themselves. I didn't mean to. It wasn't my idea. Douglas said it would be funny. Rick exchanged a look with Alhan, his expression grim. You better call his dad, Rick said. This isn't something we can let slide. Alhan nodded, pulling out his phone. Mr. Hamrick, this is Sheriff Ruler. We need you to come out to Ruler Farm. Your son's involved in a situation that requires your immediate attention. By the time Mr. Hamrick had arrived, Jarvis was sitting on the porch, his head hung low as Eunice handed him a glass of water. The Boa Fang uniform seemed to weigh heavily on his shoulders now. Allison and Tiffany watched from the doorway, their expressions a mix of curiosity and concern. Alex stood nearby, his arms crossed as he tried to piece together what had happened, his bandaged hand a reminder of his own recent encounter with the dojo. Mr. Hamrick stepped out of the car, his face tight with worry. Sheriff Ruler, he said, approaching quickly, what's going on? Alhan gestured toward Jarvis. Your son and some others spooked my horses. They broke through the fence and stampeded. This could have been a lot worse. Mr. Hamrick's face darkened as he looked at his son. Jarvis, is this true? Jarvis nodded silently, tears welling in his eyes. I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't want to do it, but Douglas said... I don't care what Douglas said, Mr. Hamrick snapped. You're responsible for your own actions. He turned back to Alhan. Sheriff, I'll cover any damages and make sure Jarvis faces the consequences. Alhan nodded, his tone firm but fair. We'll discuss reparations in the morning. For now, I suggest you take your son home and think about how to ensure this doesn't happen again. His eyes lingered on the Boa Fang uniform. Those are Boa Fang uniforms you were wearing, weren't they? Jarvis nodded miserably. Yes, sir. We came straight from evening practice. Alhan's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice steady. I see. We'll be having a conversation with Sensei Usanagi about this as well. As the two of them walked back to their car, Alex turned to Alhan. Do you think this is over? Alhan sighed, glancing toward the darkened field. For tonight, maybe, but I have a feeling this isn't the last we'll hear from Douglas Kennedy. Alex grimaced. He knew the next day at school would be fun, especially since Jarvis had gotten caught in the act. Douglas wouldn't let the day go by without some sort of reparations for what had happened tonight. Allison placed her hand on his shoulders, bringing him from his thoughts. You okay? She asked. What? Oh, yeah, of course. I'm just thinking about ways to improve our security here at the farm. Wonder if Ken has any ideas. He's pretty good with computers and stuff, Alex says. Give him a call, Allison suggests. Worst case scenario, he says no. Thanks, Allie, Alex says softly. I think I will. Thanks for saving me tonight. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't been there, Allison says. The two childhood friends hugged tightly. Alex could feel his heart racing with no explanation as they embraced. Tiffany smiles at the two of them until they separate before she gives Alex a hug as well. You know, she enjoyed that hug more than she will admit, Tiffany whispers in Alex's ear. You should totally ask her out. I don't think she wants to date a bully magnet, Alex replies softly, his face flushed with embarrassment. At admitting his trouble with bullies, his bandaged hand flexed, unconsciously remembering yesterday's humiliation, where Douglas had been watching, probably already planning this revenge. Hey, Allison said firmly, catching his downcast expression. Those bullies, they're the ones with the problem, not you. You proved that tonight, when it really mattered. You didn't freeze or run away. You protected me. As he turned toward the window, Allison suddenly hugged him from behind. I'm glad you're okay, she said softly. Alex froze, his pulse quickening. When she let go, he managed an awkward smile, catching Tiffany smirking at him from the corner of his eye. What? He asked defensively. Oh, nothing, Tiffany said with a grin. Just wondering if Allison's going to start calling you her knight in shining armor now. Alex groaned, but Allison's laugh, soft and genuine, somehow made it all worth it. Maybe she was right. Maybe being brave wasn't about never being afraid, but about doing the right thing anyway. His father's words from yesterday echoed in his mind. A ruler never shows fear, son, but it doesn't mean we never feel it. And that ends chapter 4. All right, I'm opening the floor for some questions. I'm sorry if I was speaking too fast. Um, Trying to get as much of it read as I can. I'll try to slow it down. What's going on, Caitlin, Jared, and my Aunt Brenda? Thank you guys for tuning in. The floor is open for your questions now. I know Amber has a bunch. It's all she talked about while I was at work today. Post them in the comment section, and I will bring them on the screen and answer them to the best of my abilities. And you're right, Amber. I might have been reading at a good pace, but my eyes were moving faster than my lips were. So I was mixing up words. I think that's what she meant by slow down. I don't know. That's a good question, Amber. Let's start with that question. She says, what gave you the idea to have a stampede be the opening of sorts to Alex and Allison's friendship? Well, first off, it's not a friendship. They've been friends prior to this. This is the start of their romance. And the idea came to me, to be honest, it came to me reading a book, another book. I got the idea from another book. It was Swiss Family Robinson, there's a stampede in one of the many 50,000 versions of that book. I think the one I read was a retelling. It was the second version of Swiss Family Robinson I read. It was a retelling, and one of the Robinson boys fell in love with a girl, a native on the island they were stranded on after a stampede of rhinoceroses. And I've decided to modify that scene for my book. Obviously, small town Polkville, North Carolina, you can't have rhinoceroses stampede through the town, so horses made sense. Sorry, guys, I have been up since 6 a.m. this morning, maybe a little earlier. That's why I keep yawning. Scott, if you're still watching, do you have any questions? You usually ask some of the best questions. You ask those in-depth, thought-provoking questions, just like the one Amber just asked. While I'm waiting for more questions to come in, just a reminder: tomorrow night on Carolina Nexus After Dark, after my special guest comes on and I interview him, I will be discussing Rigo Balderas and Aiden Kenta from the Casey Elkin series. Bring your questions for that tomorrow night, 7 p.m., live on Facebook and YouTube. Also, May 16th, it's a Saturday, special Saturday episode of the Carolina Nexus. We're calling it Magic the Gathering Night. I'm going to have King Luke and Squire Nate from the Kingdom on my podcast to discuss Magic the Gathering. Amber says, since Scott doesn't have any questions, I'll answer another. Or I'll ask another. Where did you get the name Alhan? I've never heard that name before reading your books, and it's interesting. I think you asked this question last Monday, but I'll go ahead and reiterate it. Um, so the character of Alex Ruler, when I first created him, he was a parody of Goku from Dragon Ball Z. Um, So naturally, he had to have somebody that looked up to him. And the original concept for Alex, he was a monkey kid. Again, he was a complete parody of Goku from Dragon Ball Z. Um, so the name Alhan came from the fact that Goku and his grandfather, who raised him in Dragon Ball, was named Gohan. And I wanted to use the same first two letters, but I didn't want to use Alan. In my opinion, Alan was overrated. It was overused at the point that this book started being written. So I created my own name and I used Alhan. Call me a nerd. Call me a nerd. I know. Go ahead, Amber. Laugh it up. Call me a nerd for doing it that way. But that's how the name Alhan came to be. Because Seventh Sanctum, which is a name generator I use for a lot of different things, could not give me a proper name that started with the letters AL. So I created my own. And some people, like yourself, will pronounce it as Alan, but it's pronounced Alhan. Amber also says she'll definitely be watching the MTG night. Well, you're one of like 8 people that I expect to be watching it. So, I mean, you're part of both my primary Magic the Gathering pods. So I hope you're watching. Ty Ty, you got a question? Tell mommy to ask it for me. I know it's the nerdiest answer I could have given you, but it's me, so you wouldn't accept anything not nerdy, now would you? So, for those of you that aren't on YouTube, um, Tyson is watching with Amber on YouTube on our television, and he hollered at TV, so he obviously has a question. He just she just doesn't understand what he's saying to ask it. So, Ty Ty, your answer to your question is yes. Ooh. Let's see if I can fix this. If you're watching on Facebook, don't forget to share, like, and comment 5 friends. If you're watching on YouTube, like, share, subscribe. I appreciate it. Trying to get this monotonized, trying to get my podcast monotonized so I can do this and make money from doing it. In order to do that, I got to have viewers. So like, share, subscribe on both platforms so I can do this and make something from it. Next question, if there's any there. Looks like this is going to be the Amber question asking show because nobody else is watching apparently. Shoot, Amber, go ahead. Ask the questions. We'll put them live on the screen. Amy was present during the first two chapters. Chapter 2, closer to the end, she was there for the dinner scene, and she appears again in chapter 3. So she has a very minor part in the story in this book, but in the next book, she has a major part in the first few chapters. Well, again, Amy isn't a very major character to the story at this point. She plays a major role in the next book and then in Hometown Justice after the prequel ends. So don't get mad at me for that. I just didn't have a whole lot of room or a whole lot of character moments for a 5-year old. That's the reason in the beginning of Hometown Justice we don't see Chase, Alex's nephew, and Amy's son as a child. He's already a middle schooler. Is the question. I'm sorry. Is the character of Alex Ruler closer to his mom Eunice or his dad Alhan? It's sort of 50-50. He doesn't have a preference. He does tend to avoid facing his mother's wrath, which I think everyone tries to avoid their mother's wrath at some point in their life. But at the same time, he's afraid of his father's ability to punish him due to being the county sheriff or city sheriff. Thank you, Rosa. I appreciate it. You're just now tuning in. You missed the chapter read, but it'll be available on YouTube later, and then I can go back next Monday and we'll do chapter 5 and 6. We're getting to the meat and bones of the story. Everything's going to culminate, and the plot's going to start thickening. But thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your congratulations. For those of you that don't know, it's been a wild ride. Shelby Starr did an article on me 2 years ago. At that point, I just had 3 books published. And now I'm sitting at Tagapagon, Homecoming, Rebellion, Aftermath, The Idol, The Daywalker, The Mist, Hostile, and Spartan. That's 8 books published with more on the way. Tagapagon number 2 is finishing up at the editor so I can have it ready when we finish reading Tagapagon here. It's been a work in progress. Yeah, everyone's going to have questions the further we get into the story, Amber. The thing is, though, I appreciate all the questions that get asked. No matter how stupid they are, no matter how pointless you may think they are, ask the question. I've had people read the books and ask me a question about a location. One of the questions I got asked was, when did Pokeful get a martial arts school? And I had to break it down to them and tell them, hey, I took creative liberties with the city of Pokeful. Because if you grew up in Pokeful, you know there's not a whole lot of excitement that goes on up there. So I had to make the excitement. And I took creative liberties with the town. I've taken creative liberties with the people. So you guys just understand there are going to be Easter eggs for people that live in the area, that know the area. You will see me reference Go Video or Davini Salvage, which, for those of you that don't know, is in book 1 of Hometown Justice. It was refurbished, repurposed into a sawmill that was closed down. But it was Davini's. The school that Alex, Ty, and Ken go to was Pokeful High School. It has since been torn down. There was never a Pokeful Middle School that I'm aware of, but I added a middle school. I could not find information on the school mascot. That's why they're called the Wolverines. So I took a lot of creative liberties with this. I'm not afraid to admit it, but that's just the thing. It's called realistic fiction. It sits in a fantasy universe similar to ours. That's why Casey Elkins, with her lichens and vampires and stuff, is able to exist in the same universe. All right, guys. So if you guys have no questions, no comments any further, I'm going to go ahead and cut this episode short, get it posted to YouTube, and I will see you guys tomorrow night, 7 p.m. I'm going to have my special guest come on. We're going to question him, and then we're going to discuss Rigo and Aiden from the Casey Elkins book series. You guys have a good night, and remember, we'll be here every Monday to read the books.